House Republicans on the Oversight and Accountability Committee are vowing to keep investigating President Biden and his family. A Democrat on that committee, New York Democratic Congressman Dan Goldman, joins us now. Congressman, thank you so much for making some time for us.
Thanks for having me.
We just heard from Representative Comer earlier in the show. Of course, as you know, he is vowing to keep investigating. And I wonder what Democrats on your committee are doing to respond to that.
Well, what we're doing is what we keep doing, which is asking him where the evidence is. He has demonstrated no actual, tangible, factual evidence in support of his very bold allegations. And what we have learned today is that a Trump-appointed U.S. attorney finished up, or seems to have finished up, a nearly 5-year investigation into the depths of Hunter Biden's finances and determined that he could only prove 2 tax fraud misdemeanors and nothing in connection to the president and any of the president's finances. So Chairman Comer is talking about money laundering and FARA and racketeering. I was an organized crime prosecutor, and let me tell you that he's got a long way to go before he gets to any of those charges. But more importantly, the Department of Justice, a Trump-appointed U.S. attorney, examined all of those potential charges with much more powerful investigative tools than Congress has, and ultimately determined that there was no misconduct meriting charges there. So I don't know what Chairman Comer has seen, because from what I've seen, there's nothing of the sort. And this witch hunt needs to come to a close before Chairman Comer and the House Republicans get pretty close to abusing their power.
And I know you're saying that as a lawyer yourself, so I wonder what the plea agreement tells you about the investigation, which, as you pointed out, encompassed far more than the ultimate charges.
Yeah, it tells me that there's no there there. That the Department of Justice, again, a Trump-appointed U.S. attorney who wrote a letter to Jim Jordan, the chairman of the Judiciary Committee, a few weeks ago, saying that Merrick Garland, the attorney general, had given that U.S. attorney, who President Biden held over from the Trump administration to maintain the obvious and necessary independence of the investigation into his son. And Attorney General Garland gave him ultimate authority to make these charging decisions. And all of these allegations put forward by the House Oversight Committee, Chairman Comer, and other House Republicans were found not to be warranted and not to be supported by the U.S. attorney in Delaware. So there are 5 years of investigations into this that turned up nothing. And I know, I've looked at some of this evidence that Chairman Comer is referencing, and it does not support his allegations. And further, there's no connection to President Biden. So what they are doing is essentially persecuting a private citizen who happens to be the son of the president in an effort to politicize a congressional investigation and hurt the president of the United States. It is unwarranted. There is no basis for it. And based on what we learned today, it needs to stop.
Well, despite all that, there is no indication that Congressman Comer will stop. And you actually just tweeted about this on Friday. You tweeted that Republicans have repeatedly shown that they have no problem attacking the FBI while deceiving the public about the sham Biden investigation. It's time for the FBI to clear the record with accurate information. So I wonder what exactly you're calling on them to do. And to your point, if this isn't going to shut down the current investigation, what is?
Right. Well, the FBI document that the Oversight Committee has now reviewed, that the Republicans continue to mischaracterize and misrepresent, has some allegations of $5 million bribes from someone to someone. It's not as specific as they make it out to be. But the person from the Burisma official who is purported to be the source of that information has gone on record to say that he had no conversations with President Biden. Now we have yet another investigator who has debunked these allegations, because this was looked at by the Trump DOJ, and they ultimately did not pursue an investigation of the president. And you know how we know that? We know that because if they had, we would need to have a special counsel investigating the president. And Bill Barr, Trump's attorney general, did not appoint a special counsel. So the FBI needs to clarify exactly what is and what is not under investigation. And I would like some clarity on what they did to investigate the allegations in that FBI document that were not vetted, that were not verified, and that do not include any firsthand evidence at all.
All right, Congressman Dan Goldman, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.